right now to not be following some of these KPIs associated with rising rates, inflation, stagflation, a slowing economy. Interestingly, this market a bit more insulated from in compared to national markets. We're fortunate here. Scott is in touch with a hell of a lot of things with his business. We're going to talk with him about what he's seeing in the market as we do on a Wednesday. Wednesday's show are as informative as shows we put together. Give the show a like and a share. Keith Smith, the distinguished gentleman's in the house. We're going to spend an hour and change talking real life. Welcome the fine folks from the Culpeper Community Spotlight Facebook group. Repping the pep as we always do here on a Wednesday. Fellas, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
I am.
J-Dubs, we're in your hands. Guys, good Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk. Thank you kindly for joining us live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, Culpeper County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Today's program brought to you by Ross Mortgage and Scott Mortgage Morris. Shannon Jackson already giving Scott Morris some props right now in the thriving metropolis we call Culpeper that we love very dearly here in the city of Charlottesville. Folks, a lot to cover on today's program. Judah Wickower is our director. We have a number of data points in front of us which we will relay to you in approachable, educational, enlightening, and entertaining fashion. Judah, if you can go to the three-shot and welcome Scott Mortgage Morris and the distinguished gentleman Keith Smith to the show. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, all.
What is the place you'd like to begin, Senor Morris? We often like to talk about the interest that's coming across your desk. Is that a good starting point?
Sure, yeah. We've seen a couple days of actually some slightly improved pricing. I mean, we're not talking about, like, how about this? Things have at least plateaued from going up. I don't want to say that we're seeing real improvement because I wouldn't identify it as real improvement. I would just say we're not. It's like the train going upwards has slowed down just a little bit. I'm starting to see people who I've had conversations with for months about where they were in their buying process, now coming to the realization that a doubling in rates is actually dramatically impacting them. So what I mean by that is people have been pre-approved who maybe pumped the brakes because they thought buying wasn't for them back in November, December, and now they're reuniting with an agent in the spring. We've sent, hey, updates, look, sooner you act, the better, that sort of thing, and then really now going and having these moments of pain that the same purchase price is now $200 more a month. So that's been a common theme over the past couple weeks. But that's about it. Like I said, we have seen some improvement. I don't know. I think the improvement just is going to mean for at least some time that things stop going up. We kind of hit a plateau going forward. And I said that we would get here eventually. I don't know that we're certainly there, but it feels like we're there as far as when bonds move, they move fast. So we came up and we hit a point where I think we're at a bit of a plateau, at least for probably, I would say, the next 30 to 60 days.
30 to 60 days, you're saying less volatility with rates.
Less volatility with rates.
That's what you're saying.
That's my forecast. That's my crystal ball.
His crystal ball's been proven to be quite accurate since he started.
And we
doing
actually
the show.
have them.
Yeah.
So you're kind of following off what I was thinking. I'm thinking you're going to start seeing some balance or some stabilization of rate. But we were talking off air, and I like to track your mortgage applications, right? And you were sharing that you were pretty flat quarter over quarter. Maybe it's a little bit of an uptick in March.
So actually, a little downtick.
Month over month.
Month over month. March down. April up.
Got it.
February was up, and then March was a little bit of a dip, and then we're back up above where we were.
So we don't have huge swings. We're kind of staying a little
Yeah.
little consistent on it, and that's something that I want to try to continue to follow, because you're the lead. We talk about this all the time. You're the leading edge of this process, right? Several years ago, frankly, you weren't, right? You know, we would be picking houses out and saying, "Hey, Scott,"
before they ever got to me.
they even got to you on that end of it. Now it is, okay, let's start with the marvelous Mortgage Morris there.
I think so. It's only marvelous with the jacket.
That's right. It's only
Scott
marvelous.
Mortgage Morris.
Scotch Mortgage Morris. Thank you very much. But it's interesting. You said something off air, but I don't know if the mics caught it. The term stagflation. And actually, we got the Erpies coming in on Tuesday.
I brought it up with him yesterday.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to watch because I was busy in meetings. And it's an interesting comment, because there's, at least per the definition, there's three things that has to happen, right? It has to be high inflation, high unemployment, or slow or negative growth.
All three is stagflation.
But we're not having one of them.
The unemployment
And
is not. We're having economic growth slow. Inflation is high as December 1981.
Exactly right.
Fortunately, if there's a silver lining, unemployment is not increasing. So we hope to God, and that's something we talked about with Alex of Emergent Financial Services, that stagflation is not rearing its hideous head, because that's not a good situation.
No, that's a 1970s type of thing, because that was the last time that this happened, was in the mid-70s.
And another positive, and Scott, I'll get you in here in the mix. The CPI, the Consumer Price Index, guys, and the Consumer Price Index it's a barometer of inflation. Food is in there, gas is in there. The CPI is an indication of what we feel from pinched dollars in our purses and our wallets. However, there is a silver lining here. Core inflation seems to potentially be ebbing. Core inflation rose just 0.3% for the month.
Exactly.
Less than the 0.5% that was estimated or projected. The core inflation is a barometer that the Fed focuses on. Frankly, it does not impact the three of us or our viewers and listeners, because we have to put gas in our trucks and our cars, and we have to buy groceries to eat and to keep our kids alive. Maybe there's a silver lining there, that the core inflation is ebbing and it was slightly below projection. Any of you guys want to touch this? And this economic climate, good Lord, we are clinging to any level of hope out there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we're coming to the peak here. I think we could see another negative print on, just because of what's going on in the world related to fuel. But WTI has been up, but I think as we go into the next couple months, we're going to start to see some improvement. It's going to be, it's not going to be great. It's still going to be up over what it's been last year. So it's not like I'm saying that things are coming back down. I just think that we've kind of plateaued. I really think that we are at a kind of a standstill at the moment.
So the point I was trying to make is and thank you for picking up on that, Jerry, about this inflation increase, right? This is the highest it's been since 1981. But we still have mortgage applications coming in, right? So it seems to me, even though I had kind of thought that inflation would seriously start having an effect on the real estate market, at the moment, unless you two gentlemen think differently.
I think it's impacting the real estate market.
Okay, so
I think it's impacting the real estate market from a new construction standpoint, cost of goods.
Yeah.
I think it's impacting the real estate market from a cost of labor standpoint and what GCs are paying their subs.
Yeah.
And I think it's impacting the real estate market from a remodeling standpoint. The remodelers we're working with, the estimates that were given even 30, 45 days ago are completely different now.
So I probably should add a caveat to that, other than new construction, right? You know, because when I look at these numbers, I always separate new construction. I've been doing it for 3 years, as long as we've been doing the show, is because it skews the numbers for multiple reasons, right? That's one of that reason. The other reasons, particularly when I start looking at days on market, because new constructions are always at zero, it kind of skews the days on market a little
I think
bit.
there's still a surprisingly large number, even with the difference in cost for renovations, of investors going out and purchasing somewhat inflated distressed homes. So I think that's still a bit of, there's still a challenge for first-time home buyers, whether they're at that low entry point in their battle versus investors.
So what do you mean by that? You're saying,
I'm saying
the
that
cash positions are completely different for the investors.
I'm saying that there are still investors going out and purchasing between
3 and 4.
between 1 and 4,
Yeah.
depending on your location.
So it's interesting. I had a couple of conversations yesterday about the new construction and on the other side of the hill, right? And leaving particular names out of it, folks that are have some pretty deep bean counters ability, some large construction companies or development companies nationwide are now in that market on the other side of the mountain. So the smart money seems to be moving that way. We've been talking about this for quite some time, but when you have folks like Lanier and Toll Brothers and all these big developers and builders really out in that market actively looking on it, I think the short-term thinking from a builder's perspective is, it's hurting right now, but I think the long-term thinking is that we're still short and we still have a pretty big buyer pool.
I hope that's the case. I think the local builder, because of the cost of goods and labor, is halting production.
Without doubt.
And we have a couple on our roster of clients. One yesterday, will not say which one, but this is going to go out in a newsletter to the car roster tomorrow. One lot in Albemarle County went from pending under contract to no longer being pending under contract because of the increase in rates.
Yeah.
So they realized that this additional monthly expense was going to keep them from building a custom dream home of their choice, and instead they're now looking at the resale existing market. So this is like...
So that drives right back into my point. There are more people going after existing properties, whether investors that are now competing against first-time home buyers to flip those properties than to go in and put something up from the ground up.
Yeah, and to add to his point, and then I'll get out of your way, that just minimizes and cannibalizes the inventory even more.
That's what. Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
That's the problem. That's a one little piece of the problem. But
well, that's an interesting thing because we like to look at numbers and stats and historical stuff. Historically, you did not see the corporate investor buying single-family detached homes.
But are we really seeing? Let's just take Central Virginia. You guys are pros. Are we really seeing the Black Rocks in Central Virginia?
No,
this isn't corporate.
That was more of a macro statement, and I was going to follow it up with, because looking at the back of the numbers, I see very little of that, if none. But you do
locally
but you do have. We talked about this on the show. When professionals in the industry like myself and the real estate agents that we've coming on are looking at the buy it. That's what the level of investors in the market. It's the smaller, onesies and twosies. You're not going to see in this marketplace because the volume just isn't there. That a BlackRock that can come in and buy, like in Phoenix, hundreds and thousands. Yeah, literally a neighborhood, and coming in, and they're gobbling up all the iBuyers that that Zillow screwed up in that end of it. And they're just gobbling them up left and right. You won't see that in this marketplace. That, again, to go back to, that's why Scott's number is so important. Because you're not talking to investors, right?
But I am seeing. So the number of applications is steady and consistent with where we've been. However, what I am starting to see is, and this is ebbs and flows.
Executed applications.
And I could say that, and then this weekend,
you get a flood.
Land. Yeah, and that's the way it's been. It's real ebbs and flows as far as when how much is coming on market, who's going after it, and who's winning contracts. But I have actual mortgage applications coming in consistent, then turning into executed contracts. For the past few weeks, that's been down.
So I did a post this morning about was a couple of articles, but one of them was a chart from CNBC about inflation is going up, and to Jerry's point, the core may be this, but when fuel is up 70%, gasoline is up 48%, used cars 30%. This is month over, March over March, year over year. Fish and poultry is up 13, 14%. You have to, people, I think, at some point is going to start looking at their expenses. I know we've done that as the Smiths.
No, absolutely. One of the other things, the conversations I've been having with listing agents who are listing clients' homes who are going to go out and be purchasing, some of these are the properties that I've been talking about would be the ones that we'd be seeing coming on. These are more distressed properties, like they bought this as something that they were gonna fix and flip themselves, or fix, rehab, be there for years, and now they've gotten into it and realized the capacity of work was greater than their skill level, or whatever it is, or they bought a house that they just don't like and they can't be in there anymore because it's got all these deficiencies, and they never took the time to spend the money to rehab it. That's the sort of stuff that I'm seeing listed, and I'm hearing more like this could be this would be a great investor purchase from the agents who are listing to take them to go out and purchase the next property.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't have the stat with me, but there's some stats floating around over there. There potentially could be some buyer's remorse creeping in, and I think that's what you're talking about. They watched maybe one too many HGTV,
yeah.
And to put myself in a little bit
Chip
of
and Joanna.
Yeah, I don't watch
My
any.
wife watches Chip and Joanna. Every time it's on, I'm terrified.
Really?
I'm terrified. And I know she's watching right now, so I'm treading cautiously.
Be very careful.
Chip and Joanna scare the bejeebus out of me.
So to tell you how old I am, this old
Bob Vila.
Bob Vila,
Yeah.
this old house with me, and I actually probably get myself in a little bit of trouble. So most of the people that we built homes for, and Scott was part of that and helping us. So thank you. Were people out of the Northeast, and so back when that was going, I had two change orders. One for $10,000 and one for $1,000. And every time that they mention, well, Bob Vila does it this way.
$10,000.
Here's a $10,000 change order. And they go, you're such an you know what. And I go, well, keep on saying it. Here's another change order. But they got the point because they were New Yorkers and they were a bunch of wise you know what. And to go ahead and do that. But, it's funny. We actually had a conversation about this, Chip and Joanna and all this stuff. You know what they don't show you? The ones that fall apart.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
The disasters.
It's only the beauties.
It's only the beauties. And I would imagine if you actually really had a time to sit down and talk to their production crew and all this stuff, the failure rate's probably huge on that end of it.
Well, I mean, you guys are in the business. I mean, finding the labor now, and let's highlight Interstate Service Company here, a home's best friend, ISC.
Yeah,
but finding the labor to do the remodeling now. And the
So that's the danger that you talk about, the company who's like, I'm a new home builder and I'm going to get into buying these properties and redoing them. That's why there's remodeling companies that don't go build new homes.
Right.
Because,
It is a totally different world.
Two
man.
different, yeah, and everybody knows what everybody knows, but then you get into the, making the sausage, and that's where you can hit your pain points and the things that you weren't prepared for, even though that you knew that they existed. Really come to life.
He's exactly right.
So to go back to what you're going to take out, just so that Yona and I actually did this weekend. We took a look at all our monthly subscriptions. We're not a big TV watcher, right? So we picked one, and we got rid of all the other ones. We saved over $200 a month by just. I swear to God, by just.
What were your subscriptions to?
Oh, we had Disney, we had Netflix, we had all these different subscriptions. Plus, I obsess with reading, right? And so I get like dozens of these news articles and all that stuff. And as I've looked at it, they all kind of are saying the same thing. So I just carved off all but two.
What'd you keep?
I kept what's called Housewire, which is really focusing on that. And I kept my my Wall Street Journal on of it.
What'd you cut?
Pardon?
What'd you cut?
Oh my God, I cut. I cut so much that I don't even know what I cut. I mean, I was like, said, oh, this is cool, I'll sign up. It's only $8 a month, right? But when you start adding them all up, we saved $200.
That's great. That's a good tip right there.
That's $200. So just,
Was
really.
that 4 tanks of gas?
That's 4 tanks.
3.5?
That's 4 tanks of gas. And, one of them was, 42% of the people they polled was going to cut back on driving. Yona and I, like today, we always, if we have meetings in town, we always take, that's one. We always take one car in. But it was interesting. 12% of the people polled actually said stop paying their bills.
Yeah. How's that work?
I don't get that.
How do you stop paying your bills?
I mean, I don't even know what is even on the list. It should be looking at all these other things and go ahead and do it. Interesting stat, 20% delay buying a home. So to your point, where inflation may be impacting the housing market, 20% of the folks that they polled said that they're going to delay buying a home, which I obviously think is a mistake. Because
it's only going to be more expensive,
only
and
gonna
the
be
rent
more
isn't going to
expensive.
stop going down.
We were having this conversation last week in the studio. Next year is going to be more expensive to purchase a home this year, and it's not even in doubt. You say that with confidence and conviction.
It's going to be more expensive from both sides of the ledger.
Yeah.
Homes are going to increase 3 to 5 to 6%, and I think I agree with Scott. Mortgage rates are going to balance, but they're not going back to 2% or 3%.
No.
But you did allude that we could, if we get this inflation in check, that we could see the days of maybe 4s again.
Yeah, I believe that next fall, that's where we'll be.
4s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some hope there.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that believe that's going to happen sooner than later, but
You're cautious.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I said things would go higher than people predicted.
And you were right.
And faster.
You were right.
And I think that we stick where we are for a little longer because there's nothing to bring it back. The government has every intent of riding this out to get the prime rate up. So as long as they're increasing, they're not gonna put their thumb back on the scale for as long as possible. They're talking about reducing their balance sheet. The more they reduce their balance sheet, that actually could drive rates up more so than anything else when they start selling off the remainder of their bond portfolio.
So I read another article in the ones that I kept, which was the Wall Street Journal on that end of it. It looks like in the Northeast, COVID is kind of creeping back up again. Do you think in your crystal ball that might help them put their thumb back on the scale? Or
there's no way that they do anything before this next election
Midterms.
cycle.
Right.
It would be an app they
Strategic error.
realize it. Everybody realizes it.
so to find anything is lower, they're going to increase it.
They might increase mask mandates at best in these
No,
areas.
I'm talking about the rates.
Oh.
Right, the Fed is not going to put
Oh
its
yeah,
thumb.
no. The Fed is going to continue to so they're going to reduce its portfolio. I mean, they're going to sell some of their bonds, and they're going to continue to increase the prime mortgage rate. The prime has no direct effect, but as long as they're saying that the economy is strong enough to support doing it, you're going to see rates come up. But with the projections that are affecting bonds and how people might buy in and out of them, you're going to see some. There's the belief that a recession is on the horizon, because the Fed is going to create it by raising rates. So you're going to see some more finesse there's going to be more people big money buying back into bonds, which are going to keep things relatively normal even as the government reduces its portfolio.
The best thing we can have for us is this war ending. This war ending as quickly as possible. And obviously it's the humanitarian element first. Okay, the humanitarian element.
First and foremost.
Yeah. Okay. No doubt about it. I don't want that to be misconstrued. But this war ending will start start lowering some of this inflation data.
That's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No, I think this is too.
You think it's because of all the free money they gave away?
Well, we're past that.
No, I'm talking about. I don't see the war ending soon because I think this is to Russia's benefit to keep it going for as long as possible.
Yeah, well.
They're getting stung. The bottom line, Russia's bottom line is getting stung.
Yeah,
Big time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I understand that. I understand that mindset. Dude sitting on stacks of paper is what you're saying, right?
And I just don't see that. That's not the play. That's not like the long game for them.
I can, with so living in that part of the world for a period of time, I can tell you that's not their long game. This has been on for quite some time. It's got nothing to do with pluses and minuses. It's got nothing to do with debits and credits. It's historically a very different scenario, and without a doubt, it needs to stop and it needs to end.
But you're saying it's not anytime soon. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, I've predicted this, and I think this will happen. It'll be very similar eventually to a DMZ like North Korea and South Korea. There'll be some line once the horrifying what's happening right now stops, and there's going to be a line. One will be on one side, one will be on the other side, and this is all about connecting a land bridge from Russia through Crimea. That's what this is all about. Plus, there's about the ethnic stuff that has been going on for generations and generations and generations. I've seen it firsthand back in the 80s.
Danny O'Day, Scott throwing heat today. Couldn't agree with him more. Completely agree. They're eyeing November elections before anything is done whatsoever.
Yeah.
Johnny Ornalis.
I think everybody's doing that.
Christopher Eagle shared the show. Kevin Yancey watching the program. Bill McKenzie wants us to highlight an individual listing. Any discussion on the teardown at 705 Lions Court Lane? According to some on the neighborhood app, the owner is going to build back a single-family residence. It will be interesting to see the aesthetics of the build back in relationship to the rest of the neighborhood. The house across the street from it, number 706, was the former slave quarters for the big house at 610 that you can see from Park Street. So McKenzie wants us to highlight 705 Lions Court Lane, a home that was in pretty darn good shape that's getting knocked down, torn down, and being built back up. How do you go about financing something like that?
Great question.
So it depends on what's being left of the house. There's a couple different rehab loans that you've got options for, and it depends on who's the one actually. Are they financing it? There's. I talked about. I frequently tell a story where a friend of mine did, who has a renovations business, did a very expensive remodel to a home, being plus in the six figures, and then came back a year later to the same street and said, for doing work for someone else, and said, "Hey, I don't recognize the house." And they said, "That's because after all the work that you did, they just tore it down and built another home." So it depends on, and that's like the investment money that's going into some of these investment cash purchases. Like, how are they doing it? Do they have the option if they want to renovate? Absolutely. You've got probably 3 different options depending on how far you're going to raise, how many walls are going to be left from the original building, what the scope of the work is going to be, is it going to appraise? But at the same time, who's doing what here in Charlottesville is a very interesting question.
So I was trying to look on my app to search because I don't have that home committed to memory on as far as to comment on it. But what I wanted to do while we're kind of looking at that is change the narrative a little bit. So what loan products do you have currently available for first-time home buyers? And the reason I'm asking you is I've got one that I need to talk to you about. So first-time home buyer, what is some of those so-called, the incentives from the federal side of thing going away?
Besides the rosary beads and a Bible for the first-time home buyer?
Torah, yeah. Rosary beads.
Okay. Besides that,
Torah, whatever other religious document that you can pray over.
So I've got a zero down FHA option. I've got Virginia Housing, all of their options, which the Second Plus is probably my favorite over the grant money. Then Home Ready, which is a Fannie conventional product. Those are all, and then if you're a veteran, your VA loan is going to be the best first-time home buyer, anytime home buyer product that exists. Those are the highlight of the.
So of your mortgage applications, are you starting to see a lot of first-time folks continue or dive off? I'm just trying to get a snapshot of the market from your application side of things.
So the biggest struggle with first-time home buyers is having both down payment, closing cost for total cash to close, which I have a couple different options to get them to zero, to where if they can afford to pay their closing cost, then we can make the most competitive offer for them. Of course, if they can pay both their down payment and their closing cost,
they have a chance.
yeah, that really gives them the best options in making an offer.
So again, the reason I'm bringing it up is because we buyers need to stay in the market. They need to be positive. They just need to keep on going through it and working with a trusted advisor as yourself. I just wanted to make sure we got out there that there are options, there are tools available to help folks get it. Now they need to land in our ballpark once you pre-qualify them to help them with the rest of the tools to cross the finish line to get the deal.
And once they start, we can give them a pre-approval and a range, and then you know what to shop with them for. So they're out there looking at realistic properties, and they understand all the dynamics of making an offer, what the market is currently like, how you're going to support them through the process, the number of homes that they could see, and what those general areas look like, and then to maybe open up their mindset of where, what does looking at an area like north of Charlottesville or west of Charlottesville or south of Charlottesville look like for you to really make the most of what you're qualified for.
So literally this whole conversation about what are you cutting out and all this kind of great stuff and first-time home buyers and the product that you're talking about, I actually had this conversation yesterday with a potential buyer. Look, and the comment was, this is going to cost me $200 a month extra. It's okay. Well, take a look at what you're doing per month. Maybe there's some money there that you can find, because people still try to buy by the month, right? By the monthly payment. Is that usually the case?
That's always the case.
Yeah. Very rarely, unless it's an investor or something like that they would go ahead and do that. So I'm trying to look up Mr. McChenzie. There's a bill that suggests.
Yeah, Bill McChenzie. Well, Bill, a lot is coming in on the feed too, fellas.
Okay.
Daniel McDougal in your business has this
Hey.
for you guys. Routinely watches the content. I have FHA, USDA, and FHDA pre-approved buyers, but they are losing out to conventional loans and cash offers. A few go through in the far outlying areas.
Okay, sure, but so if you're someone who's working with me, and let's say you're FHA or whatever it is, are we doing a good job of, what does your team look like? What's your process look like? I'm going to get the listing agent's contact so that they're getting a call, text, and email from me along with, I had a conversation yesterday about her concern over a VA loan, and this is an agent who she and I do a ton of work together. And who knows that we successfully overcome this VA argument all of the time. But she's now getting gun shy, given what the market's doing. If I'm having a conversation with the listing agent, and the listing agent cannot tell me that there is anything distressed about the property, because that's going to be one of my main questions. If you're worried about the VA offer, is there something about the property that you're not telling me? Oh, no, Scott, no, the property's in great condition. Then I've got a buyer who not only has the option, we get a warning flare if the appraisal is going to come in short through something called Tidewater. If we've got real comps that we can make that argument with, the next step is, even if the appraiser refuses to adjust value, we can then go to the VA with these real and actual comps or something special about the property that gives it the value that you believe that it has, and get a reconsideration of value in that appraisal without the appraiser having to agree. You're not going to get that in any other product. The buyer, most veterans are better qualified than your average conventional buyer, and they're not coming out of pocket 5, 10, 20% down payment and their closing costs that are generally just coming with closing costs. So if I can present the strength of buyer, and you can't tell me as an agent why there's anything wrong with the property that we should be worried that it's not going to appraise or have some sort of deficiency in, given the age of the siding or the quality of something else, we have the best product available to the client is a VA loan. When it comes to FHA, are you as a lender going out and talking to the listing agent and explaining the strength of your buyer, so if it's up against two like offers, there's something that you're presenting that's making your client stronger? That's where the real strength lies in getting some of the stuff done.
Good take, Scott Morris. Keith, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, VA loans are near and dear to my heart, and as vets, both of us on that end of it, I find it hard for me to stomach that when you have equal offers, they don't overtly do it, but they tend to stay away from VAs because of the struggle that you just outlined. And
You're getting props from other colleagues on that answer, Scotty Morris. Buchenski, Coach Michael Buchenski said Scott knows his stuff. That was a great point. He said we've had that kind of success on VA loans as well. Well done with that answer, Scott.
Thanks,
that's
Mike.
from Michael Buchenski right there. You know your stuff when the other folks in the business are giving you props on your stuff.
That's kind. Thanks.
Bill's got more info on this. Katie Pearl tags me in a post on Facebook. Are you ready for this one from Fairfax?
Mm-hmm.
This is from Fairfax, Virginia. And guys, get ready for this listing. $800,000
I've
listing.
seen this.
You saw this?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. $800,000 listing in Fairfax, Virginia. Home is being sold as is.
Yeah.
Cash offers only. No access to see the lower level.
And here's the best part.
Here's the best part. The sellers are acknowledging that the home will convey with people living in the lower level with no lease in place.
Called squatters.
I don't think it's called squatters.
Have you ever seen Ozark?
I think I have seen Ozark. Ozark is good. Ozark is good. I would say that would probably be the folks in the basement, family members of the sellers that they're trying to keep in place.
Yeah.
And
Potentially.
essentially an extended lease with no termination term.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what you kind of feel?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, who knows exactly what the...
$800,000 in Fairfax, Virginia. This is an active listing.
Yeah.
It's a pretty house.
Yeah.
It's a pretty house.
So you got to assume that it's probably 1.2 without all the other stuff
mumbo
going
jumbo.
on. Yeah.
800,000. I'll give it to you again, then you give me your take. 800K active listing, cash offers only. Potential buyers have no access to the lower level. The home is sold as is with acknowledgement that the home will convey with people in the lower level with no lease in place. Scott Morris.
Yeah, I mean, so let's say that you're going to buy it with the 100% of just dealing with whatever's going on in the basement for as long as you can deal with it, and you're going to rent upstairs for whatever you can rent it for and never think twice about it. Like, that's your buyer. Are they out there? Probably, but I mean, it's still ridiculous to look at.
Ridiculous. McDougal makes a joke on this, and then we'll get Smith's take. D-Mac says this: the house does have vinyl floors and Formica countertops. Huge plus there.
Oh, it's coming back. The 70s are coming back. I'm
Taking a
convinced
zing
of
at the house.
I'm convinced of it, and hopefully it has lime green toilet fixtures and stuff like that in it, because that's what's old is new again.
I saw this
Look
and
at
I
me.
thought this was a complete joke. It is not a joke.
No, yeah, it's...
This is an active listing.
So I did some research, thank you, for 705 Alliance Court Lane. That's actually not on the market. That sold on October of 2020 for 605. So my suspicion is, and looking at it on the back end of things, whoever owns it closed on it on 10/29/20 for $605,000. They probably sat on it for a few years, and now they're demoing it and rebuilding a new home.
Dude, Katie Pearl. Katie, you make the content better all the time, Katie Pearl. We very much appreciate you, KP. The crazy thing is, this house is now pending.
Yeah.
You hear that, Scott?
Yeah.
It's pending.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. The Fairfax house.
Yeah, it's, that's a demonstration, in my opinion, that's a demonstration of what an unhealthy market looks like.
That's why people say bubble.
But bubble, unhealthy is one thing, bubble is something else, right? As long as the lending requirements are as tight as they are.
Well, it's cash only.
Yeah, so why is it a bubble? If it's cash, it's not a bubble.
And it needs a ton of repairs, she says.
Yeah, so again, if they borrowed, and that's what happened last time, right, somebody would have lent them, and you jump in, Scott, somebody, back in 2005 and 6, somebody would have lent them that $800,000 on some wacky, ARM interest only for, 37 minutes, and on the 38th minute it goes up by 2 points on that end of it. But if it's cash, where's the bubble? I mean, where do you see the bubble on that? They're just going to lose their cash.
I mean, it's insanity. I'm at a loss for words on something like that.
It's unhealthy. That's an unhealthy market.
This is an indication of how limited the supply is.
That's exactly right.
That's what this is.
Believe me, if there was other opportunities, whoever bought that
would then make that laughable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because there's such limited supply, it's legitimate.
Yeah.
And absurd. More comments coming in. The take on Lions Court is being asked by multiple people now.
Yeah, so, I did some back-end research, like I said earlier, so that is not on the market. It was closed in end of 2020. And, my suspicion is they held on to it for a while. They're demoing it. They're going to build a new house on it, and will be worth substantial amount of money on top of that.
Would the people, this question's come in for Scott, will the folks that own it be turning this over to their builder for a construction loan?
For Lions?
Yeah.
It's possible once they've raised it and it's an empty lot. If that's what they're doing.
It's an empty lot now.
If they're not, okay. If it's truly an empty lot, no walls, no nothing, then yeah, that's possible.
So that turns into the two builder discussions, right? So if it's a true custom builder, which my suspicion is that it will be, the owner.
It's a good part of town.
Yeah, the owner will retain the land. They'll go out and get a construction permanent loan, right? They'll hire Jerry the builder to come in and then Jerry the builder will get draws through the construction of it.
Possibly, but when I talk about potentially, yes. But when I talk about the friend of mine who runs the renovation business, we joke, how come you never send me any business? He goes, my clients don't borrow money.
That's exactly right. So then the second option.
Good spot to be in.
So there's three paths there, right? The path we just outlined, the second one you just outlined, that this particular owner has a substantial amount of cash, and then it's just a draw schedule to the builder. The third option, and there's not a lot of builders in this marketplace that do it, but they're starting to creep up a little bit, that the builder comes, this is what we used to do, comes with a builder line of credit and says, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, we're going to build this house on you on this lot for X amount of dollars. I need you to sign over the first deed of trust on your lot. I'll finance the construction when it's done.
That's risky for the builder.
I know that firsthand.
Yeah.
I literally know that firsthand. So, that's basically the three paths on that end of it. But Scott's probably the right one. My suspicion is depending on who and so forth and so on, there's just a pot of cash there that they're building a house on.
Your thoughts on what's going to happen with that? And we'll get to the other comments coming in.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. More than likely, Scott's right. It's the second one, right? It's the cash. But even if it's the first option, we have to take a look at and I can't get to the back end on my phone. I got to take a look at it. Did they buy that 605 in cash? Do they have a loan on it? But we can look at all that stuff through the GIS and through the tax records. But let's go under the assumption that they bought that in cash. Even if they got a construction permit, that's all that equity sitting in there. And they're building $1.5 million, $2 million house, my suspicion.
You think the same, Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely bananas. This question's come in. Does the panel think the back half of the year, I'll extend this. I don't think it's the back half of the year because of the uncertainty with the midterm elections. How about the first part of next year is going to create a more stabilized market?
Yes, which I still believe we've got to get through. We've got to get some sort of forecast on the Fed's extent, like how far it's going to go with its rate increase before we're really going to get there. So we're going to get into, I think, spring or summer of next year before we get any kind of pullback in what we'll call most stable. I think we've got to get to spring or summer of next year.
Keith Smith.
But I'm going to go backwards to Lions because my wheels are turning on that a little bit. You're going to start seeing more of this. We saw a couple of Lake Monticello in the last 12 months or so. You know, waterfront lots. People are buying homes that were built in the 60s, late 60s and the 70s, and they're tearing them down. You know, they're buying them for $500,000, you know, 600,000. They're tearing them down, and they're selling their what was it? Their $800,000 townhome or whatever it is for cash up there. They probably don't own too much on it, and they're coming down and building an $800,000 house on a lot. And you know, I think you're going to see some of that moving along, but that's going to be very location specific. You're not going to see that all over in Buckingham County, right?
Bill McChensey says the owners looked at renovating the house and opted for raising the house after seeing the 1940s piping and other problems that arose with an older house.
Look, we come from that world. New construction, even though it's accelerating right now, is always a safer bet as far as budgeting and cost than renovation. You never know what you have until you open it up.
Is that a zing at Quest Piping?
No, so 1940.
Quest Plumbing?
No, so 1940s would be galvanized plumbing.
Okay.
And
Pipes,
lead, wood, cast iron.
Cast iron, lead. I bet you if you dig into that, there's a bunch of asbestos in there.
Yeah.
At that end of it. So, you know, just to redo all that, and, you know, they can turn around and build a new construction home that looks just like this, that's modern and all that stuff, that if you do it smartly, you wouldn't know the difference from the curb if it was 1940s or 2022.
Barbara Bozick, giving you a question.
Yeah. Thank you for chiming in, Barbara.
She says, Keith Smith on the listing side, are you finding that people who have defended maintenance for decades expect to list at top dollar? I had 2 in a row this week. Are you seeing this as well? Deferred maintenance. I'll do this again. Keith Smith on the listing side, are you finding the people who have deferred maintenance
So let's define
for decades expect to list for top dollar? I've had 2 this week alone. Deferred maintenance houses still expecting top dollar in a sale.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah.
Well, so we talked about this. So we're in this weird place with the market. The short
No better time than now.
The short answer to the question is yes. But then that's when the trusted professionals come in, because we talked about this, I believe it was on Monday, that, you know, you can still overprice a property in today's market. You can still overprice something, and eyeballs will start coming off on it. But we need to talk about deferred maintenance and renovation. We talked about the potential, you know, resanding an oak floor is your highest return on investment today, according to National Association of Realtors and the Renovation Association on that end of it. But, you know, she's kind of right. You know, if somebody looks at this and says, okay, the roof's got a couple more years left in it, right? The HVAC is at the end of its life. People are buying them knowing that they're going to have to make these add-ons. Again, this is why that pricing is so poor. So you've got to have to price it right with the buyer's going to do that. We looked at the Lake Monticello numbers, and there's I looked at it this morning, we're down to 14 on that end of it. Half of them are over 30 or 40 or 50 days on the market.
Scarlet lettered.
Yeah, so you got to price it right. The short answer is you got to price it right. The long answer is people are willing to make the repairs. And that pendulum's going to swing at some point in time.
Michael Buchensky for Scott. The Fed indicated rate increase of potentially 11 times between now and 2024. They are way behind the 8 ball on inflation, and they are pushing us towards a recession. So I think the next 2 years we will see rising rates. I would not be shocked to see 7% rates in 12 months' time.
Mortgage rates.
Yeah.
So, agreed.
That's what you've said.
That's what I said. But I think we get into fall of 2023, and we have the potential for them to have gone too far, and that's when the thumb goes back on the scale. Maybe it goes 2024, but it's we're playing a crystal ball guessing game about how far out before they're going to push us into recession. That's going to happen. There's no question about that. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of how far do they go before they feel that they've gone too far. Because first they're going to go through a quarterly meeting where they say we may stop and we're not sure what we're going to do. And it's whether they say they stop and we don't know what we're going to do, and then they come out in the next quarter and then they forecast actually putting the thumb back on the scale, bringing things back down. Or maybe not bringing things back down, but stopping the decretion or the shrinkage of their portfolio, meaning they're going to stop selling bonds or they're going to start buying bonds again. It'll be one of those two things that really kind of pushes. There'll be a little dip, and then there'll be a big dip, and we'll go through a little bit of some of these loans that are being issued now will be refinanced, 16 to 18 months from now.
So, a couple quick questions. 2 months ago, what was interest rates at?
2 months ago,
3.5.
3.5.
What are they today?
5.5, 5.25.
Just call
Let's say good credit. You're still 5%.
5%. So that's 2.5 points. Oh, excuse me, no.
1.75
1.75. Different.
to 5.25,
And I'm-
1.5 to 5.
I just want to go back to why pricing is so important. And so the listers, the sellers, the average person are remembering 2 months ago. They're not remembering today. And that same house at $100,000.
Not even remembering 2 weeks ago.
I got it. I'm trying to be, a little. But so the point is that's the reason you got to price it right, because this interest rate's climbing a little bit makes that house that much more expensive. And since we now know that people buy by the monthly payment at that price point, this doesn't count cash. It does impact it. The buyer pool for that matter. But my opinion is I think the buyer pool is going to start shallowing a little bit. I think inventory is going to pick up a little
I
bit.
disagree with you on that one.
You really think the buyer pool is not going to?
I think the buyer pool is about to get deeper. And I've mentioned 2
You're talking
points to back that up.
Yeah.
The admission of more students than ever before. 3 points. The admission of more students than ever before at UVA this fall. The hiring of more staff to service those students than ever before at UVA.
Hey, say what you want about how this.
And data science school that is yet to be open.
You're not even considering the fact that as long as this stuff continues with Russia, that is all the fuel in the fire for DIA, INJIC to continue to get more funding than it's ever had, and an expansion there as well.
Exactly. And technology is improving. People leaving urban environments for still urban environments like Charlottesville, but with more quality of life.
So I think the overall weight is right. I don't think you're wrong. I think who's in that weight, who's in that side of the ledger is going to change a little bit. This extra point, almost 2 points, is going to carve buyers off the mark.
Unfortunately, it's going to carve the first-time home buyers and millennials and younger out.
And now that we know the millennials last year, and I think it's still going to grow based on your comment, the millennials last year was 47% of the overall buyer market in the United States. I think this time next year when we're having a show about this, I think we're going to cross the 50% mark of the millennial buyers. But I cannot see how the extra 2 points is going to carve off some buyers, or they're going to be going further out, or they're looking at less home, or whatever. But we have buyers right now that these are the conversations we're having with them.
This is something that we've talked about, and it's worsening. I'm curious to see how this climate impacts mentality and mindset when the millennial is eventually able to buy a house, and then they go to sell it. Like it's what we talked about with, I don't know, what's a good example? Like we called it pledging. The millennial is essentially pledging a fraternity and being hazed right now. The millennial is getting hazed trying to buy a house.
The most indebted generation through student loans.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, everything else.
They're getting screwed left and right.
Yeah.
So are you starting to see lending requirements ease a little bit, or are there from the feds and from the regulators? Are they going to are they from that side of the ledger?
We're starting to see now. Here's what you're going to see. So your standard products, you're going to see a little bit of restriction. Anytime we're going into a recession, and there's the potential for more default, you're going to see lending overall tighten up. But in the world that we're in right now, you're going to see more weird non-qualified mortgage products come available. And what I mean by that is DSCR loans.
So you want to explain that?
40-year. So debt service recovery. So it's not stated income, but it's stated income. But these are people who have the ability to put more money down, who are going to go out and buy a second home or an investment property, and based on what they say that or what the market says that it'll rent for, they can actually use that potential to qualify for the mortgage. You're going to see weird stuff like that. You're probably going to see more forward. We talked about the 40-year mortgage coming for people who are doing forbearance activity. I think there's the 40-year product shows up in line for, making.
Because that gets that monthly payment down,
Yeah,
and that's
you'll
what people are looking at right now. So if prices are continue to increase, which I think they will, there's just not a double digits. I think we're going to be looking at a 3 to 6% year over year. I think we'll find out what that happens this time next year. But the offset to that is this horrible thing called a 40-year mortgage, in my opinion.
That's not just, you'll see more weird non-qualified stuff because there'll be somebody out there who's got the juice to go, what if we could make this work? And as long as people have a hard time qualifying in one manner, they're going to explore all their options, and there'll be somebody out there selling.
So that's the balloon that scares me.
How so? Explain that.
I think it's a ways away.
If that becomes a balloon, so in order for a balloon to pop, you've got to have one started. And at the moment, there isn't one started.
The problem is there's not enough supply to support getting this thing off the ground.
Yeah. But the regulators
There's not enough supply for this to be dangerous.
And we've talked to this until I'm blue in the face that we don't see supply increasing because
anytime soon
it's not being allowed to increase, right?
And then you've got
talk about thumb on scale,
your medium to small size builder who's being held back by their now. And this is where I think you'll see some shift. If there's enough juice for the small to mid-sized builder to think that they can deal with getting the house in the ground sold and appraised and profit with the inflation cost and labor cost, that if that can be overcome on some level, that's probably more of an obstacle of getting things moving than anything else on top of just your standard dealing with your municipalities.
Yes.
You're talking about development or spec houses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The ones we talk with, and you talk with a lot of them too, are staying the hell away from that.
That's exactly right. They're going to stay away from it.
Because they're just terrified.
They're terrified because everybody remembers what happened. We're not that far away from the great time of unpleasantness, if you don't mind me getting this out. The real reason they're going to stay away from it, the carry cost in waiting to get stuff approved, you've got to have some deep cash pockets to do that. And that's why I started saying earlier, the big Wall Street developers and builders, the ones that have huge cash on their balance sheet, they're going to start doing this because now's the time to get involved in it because they've got the cash flow to carry it for X number of years. And it happened last time. I remember when this time of great unpleasantness happened, and unfortunately I was in it, couldn't get out of it. But at that time, that's when the people with cash were starting to gobble up land and opportunities. And guess what? The ones that are being sold now are the ones that had the ability to buy it back at that particular point in time. So the cash is going to be in it. The cash is going to be buying dirt.
There's a huge undeveloped portion of it's like Three Flags and Culpeper. There's a whole section that never got done. You can see, you look on 29, you can see the entrance, but they're not putting anything up now, which is mind-blowing to me. And I think that's because all of that got sold to something that shows up as the owner is some company in Florida.
It's probably a holding company.
But it's to me, the last 5 years have been, red lights dinging, you've already got this approved, sectioned, and everything else out. I think some of the, may have even you've got pipes in the ground as far as really getting this thing going.
I mean, the project out in Colonial Circle. It's just I've said it numerous times in Fulvana County. We're in our 6th year, and the project is just starting to put trees down. So you have to have carry costs to carry that project for 6 years plus, for 7 or 8 years.
That's not just Fluvanna.
That's exactly right. I happen to know the specifics on this. But
look at Look at Prophet Ridge.
Absolutely.
And that's that's Albemarle County. That's desirable.
Absolutely. But, all these different projects are going to take forever. So this is why this conversation we had about the future land use plan for the city of Charlottesville is so important, because once they get these ordinances in place, it should make the path a little faster. I used the word should.
Yeah.
On that end of it, we shall see, but.
What do you say? How about the question for you guys? And then we'll get to the ones coming in. What do you say to the local small developer and custom home builder that still has lots without housing on it and some debt service, some carrying costs with those empty lots?
Well, the first question I would ask is why, because, why didn't we sell them?
How many? Yeah.
Yeah, how many and all that kind of great stuff. There may be another reason other than, market forces. I would, right now, if you've got a lot that's ready to put a house on it and you're not able to sell it, there's other reasons behind it, I think. I may be wrong, to go ahead and do that. So, from my side of the equation, I'd be looking at the why.
I mean, you wouldn't go spec house, though.
See,
how quickly can you get it up?
Yeah, see,
you'd go spec house.
How quickly can you get it? If you can get it up in 6 months, absolutely. If it's you want to do, here's the danger. Do you want to do what neighborhood is it in? Are you talking about doing some $1.2+ million build and that's where you're going to be your niche? Or are we talking about doing
Yes.
$400,000 to $600,000 homes, or that's
that would be no to that one. Yes to the first one.
It's
9 plus.
So I'm gonna, yeah.
Can you carry that? That's can you hang that little tushy out there and get it done?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell a true story. Built a bunch of spec houses prior to the time of a great unpleasantness at the tune of about $750,000. And what happened was by the time I got to finish them, the market imploded. So that's the fear, right? The fear is it doesn't matter what the point is, and we ended up having to sell them for several $100,000 below actually what it cost us. So that's the fear in that.
So you're basically saying you're much more comfortable carrying the debt service on some dirt than on
there
a $1
may be
million
no debt
structure.
service. The lot may be hold cream, and he or she, whoever this may be, is sitting on it. There's
debt service associated with
just taxes
That's
and
what I'm
so
saying.
forth and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just carry costs. There's basic carry costs on that end of it. But the reality from a spec house perspective, the real estate market, as we all know, that we talk about all the time, is 5 things, right? Location. So we think the location's right. Price is really not an issue in new construction, and if this is somewhere in Albemarle County, if it's got a 1 in it, it'll sell. There's no doubt about it. Features and conditions will have. It's the timing, right? And the problem with that is if I make a decision, I tell you how my advice would be to that client, I'd sell it off the paper, is what I would do. And I'd put a foundation in the ground, get some forward movement on it so I'm not too much in debt if something should change on the end of it. I just got a foundation in the ground, and I would sell it. I put it out in the market, and I would sell it. That's what I would do. I would not allow it to go all the way to completion because we don't really know. And the pushback that you might get from that is, well, Keith, I get that, but I don't know what my windows are going to cost me 6 months from now or 2 months from now.
That is the pushback.
Yeah. So it's a chicken and egg kind of thing, right? On the flip side of that, depending on where it is, what's not going down? Rent.
Yeah.
So you'd have to do an ROI and say, okay, if I build this out and it costs me this much in debt service, and can
Will the rent cover it?
Will the rent cover it?
Lot coming in here from you guys. Jamie Turner loves when you're on the show. Jamie Turner, mayor of Gordonsville, now repping the PEP, and he says to Scott Morris, there's another situation like that downtown as well, Scott. He was talking about, was it Three Flags you were talking about? He says there's another situation like that downtown as well now. There were going to be townhomes a few years back, but now they are just sitting, foundation and pipes coming out of the ground. JT has that for you. This is an interesting thing. This is multiple comments in one. This is from Michael Buchensky. The funny thing is, when we bought our home in 2009, the rate was 5.25%. We refinanced it 2 years later at 3.5%. So it should come back. It will just take time after the Fed and government messes it up at first. Then he adds a question for Keith and then a comment for us to consider. The question for Keith: would you sell now, Keith, take the profits, and sit and rent until the market drops? Or would you rent the house out versus sell it? Talking about your personal residence, so keep that in mind. And then the last one, he says this: large private equity firms are literally buying up all of builders' neighborhoods to have rental assets. It seems like they want to push all potential homeowners into renters as a future strategy to maximize profits.
I've agreed with, that is totally a thing that's happening. We're just not seeing quite as much of it here, or maybe, I know Baczynski's maybe is a little more connected to some new construction. Maybe he is seeing that in with some of the builders he's related to with.
Yeah, look, the other thing, I'll go back to the sell and rent thing, because Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
Your wife wants to sell.
we had a business meeting about this morning, so
Yeah.
I can fill everybody in on what we're doing with that.
So, are you doing it? Are you selling? Your home is going on the market?
At some point in time, very close, we got some work we want to do to it, but
This calendar year?
we made the decision.
It's a lot of stammering over there.
And there's a lot of questions. We made the decision not to put the apartment in the basement like we were going to do. That's what we were going to do. And we've made some family decisions on that end of it. And one of them is going to be, putting it on the market, capitalizing on this thing. And if we've got a short-term rent, then we short-term rent on that end of it. We also have a rental property that we may or may not move into if we need to do that. So we're blessed. We have options to go ahead and do this, but that decision was made at a business meeting. Yona gets 2 votes to my 1 vote, so that's usually how this works on that end of it. I'm going to call up Mike because I need a place for my boat, and so we'll just send my boat over to Mike's house so he can store it over there.
In Crozet?
Wherever. I'll put it.
Bujenski, you're getting a boat.
You're getting a boat
In your driveway.
A little 22-foot center.
I hope Sarah's okay with that.
Yeah.
Just a heads up.
So as far as new construction is concerned, interesting thing that has changed, right? And Mike and some of the folks can see that. What happened in the time of great unpleasantness, all the small people went away, yours truly included, right? We got out of the business. I'm starting to see a lot of smaller builders over the last couple of years get back into the business, mostly on a construction perm kind of scenario where they're building on your lot because nobody wants to get a line of credit anymore to go ahead and do that. So I don't know if they're seeing that, but I'm seeing some more smaller builders, and it's so much so we're working on a class on how to work with smaller builders as far as real estate agents go.
Scott, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, that's kind of, I think that if you're a builder who can afford to do a turnkey project and spec something, and how quickly can you get it in the ground or get it to assuming that you're ordering windows now, you could have it done in September, October. I think if you can get it out there by spring of next year, I think you're probably in a good place to do it. Risk on.
So
you're selling or renting? Selling is what you want to. You guys.
Yeah, I mean, just
sell.
the conversation we've been having, right? Sell it, cash out. This is the best time to.
So then you sell, then you go rent somewhere.
And if we can't find something to buy that meets our needs, we're just going to rent for a short-term rental. Again, we're blessed. We've got a rental that we own that we can time selling the house.
Oh, is that what you're going to do? That's great.
It's just an option.
Yeah, it's a good option.
Just an option. So we've made the family decision that I was hanging on to put actually an apartment in the basement for my parents, but after having discussions with them, we're pivoting to someplace else. And thanks to the show, and thanks to people pushing me in that direction. But does both of you guys know the real huge difference between me as a builder using a builder line of credit versus building on somebody else's lot? Do you know what the difference is? The major difference on that is?
What?
So if I do a build a line of credit, I own the dirt in the state of Virginia. Everything goes with the dirt. If I got a problem with Mr. and Mrs. Miller, get off my property, right? Versus if I'm building on Mr. and Mrs. property, it's the reverse end of it. And most the reason why the builder line of credits was so popular back in the day
Share
was
control.
It kept control. It kept control of what could happen. Things fell apart. You turn around and sell it to somebody.
Sure, that's why one of the builders that I work with who does turnkey, they've got the juice to build the house, sell it to the client at the end. They don't wait on a draw. There's no arguing
That's
with the
exactly
bank
right.
about what stage, we're here, you owe us this much money. They don't have that conversation. They build the house, they sell it at the end. That's it.
So the way it used to work, and they still have them now, is you have a substantial amount of money, 10 million, whatever the number is. I get a contract with Mr. and Mrs. Miller to build it. I send the contract from. They carve off of that line of credit this amount of money. As the foundation's done, they send me money. Framing's done, they send me money. There's inspections and all this great stuff. And at the end of it, if Mr. and Mrs. Miller don't pay me, then they don't get the keys, and
Then
I
you
sell
keep
it.
it.
I sell it to somebody else. Until the music stops in musical chairs.
Yeah.
And you
Then
have
the bank comes a knocking.
and you have dozens of those. Not that may or may not have happened to me, and you have dozens of those, and then it becomes a
I
different
appreciate your honesty and the vulnerability you show on this show here. It's
I-
not easy to do what you do here, and you do it often.
Well,
it's a testament to you.
story. Well, it's how we help people, right?
Yeah, speak
Right.
from personal experience.
That's how we help people.
Closing thoughts, gentlemen. Scott Morris.
Stick to your trusted advisors. People are giving you advice because they want to see you succeed, and no matter what that is, whether that's you're a client buying a house, you're or a new agent, or a seasoned agent, or an LO working with your team, whatever you've got going on. If you've got people that you know, like, and trust, who you go to for advice, take that for what it's worth. Do the best you can, and go out there and win.
Well said.
A month ago, Yona and I did the following exercise, and this I would recommend anybody doing this stuff. We kept a written ledger of what we spend every day, and we did it for a month. And we sat down over the weekend and we took a look at it. And what can I carve out? What am I overspending on? What am I underspending on? Plus, we sat down and took a look at our monthly automatic subscriptions. You took a look at that. You'll be surprised how much money you can carve off of your monthly expenses, which will help offset any interest raise in class or fuel or something like that. Do that. It was an eye-opening experience for us, because you just do things automatically and you don't realize you're doing them until you look at it on paper, and it was a substantial amount of money. So do
Good
that.
take.
It's a great little tool.
Good take, Scott Morris, guys. Ross Mortgage. I'll say it again, Scott Morris and Ross Mortgage will help you navigate this process. Every Wednesday, you see what this man is all about. A veteran, community stakeholder, all around good guy. Keith Smith, you know very well. Over how many shows?
Oh my God,
Is it,
we're like 2 or 3 from 300.
that's what I was going to say, close to 300.
I think I got to double check. It's either this Friday or next Friday we hit 300.
And on Friday's show of Real Talk, we have a big time announcement with an even more innovative way for you to engage with the Real Talk brand. So Friday, it's Ned Galloway and Neil Williamson on Real Talk. Judah Woodcower is the man behind the camera, keeping us on point. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you for joining us on Real Talk this Wednesday, presented by Ross Mortgage and Scott Mortgage Morris. You guys have a good morning. Take care. Bravo.